Oh, welcome back to another wonderful episode of the Grateful Together podcast. I am so thankful that you are here because I have so much to talk about today. Before I get into this episode, I do just want to thank each and every one of you for following and joining this family. I am so happy to be a part of your life, and I'm so glad that you're a part of mine. I continue to show up and do my best. And overall, that is what this message is about. Showing up, being bold, and remembering that the way you show up is banking on other people. Like when you don't show up, you fail other people. And what I mean by that is when God calls you to do something or he leads you to do something, it's imperative that you do it when he tells you to do it. And even though it gets tough, even though people may not want you there, you have to stay the course, because the minute you leave, even if it's for a second, someone may not get to hear what it is that they need to hear in that moment. So continue to stay faithful to God and walk by joy and faith. Be bold and courageous and be willing to go to do whatever God has told you to do. And I know this has been the constant message of a lot of things that I've been talking about, but that's the overall message, because that's the way we should be living our lives. We should be living according to God's will for us. And our purpose on this earth is to be disciples, to be bridesmaids, and continue to stand for our bridegroom, which is the Lord. So, before I get into this message again, I just want to say, if you have not, followed this family, please subscribe if you feel led to. Also, if you feel like this is for somebody, please share it. And if you liked it yourself, please like it. And also let me know down in the comments what your thoughts is, what you would like to hear more of, how you like the videos. Chime in and let me know, where it is you guys are with this, ministry. So with no further ado, drum roll. That wasn't a drum roll. I don't know what that was. But let's get into it. Hopefully you can hear me over my son's lullaby music. Okay. So what I'm going to be talking about today is basically how to play hardball. Like getting in, stepping up to that first home plate and hitting a home run. And basically that's just stepping up to the plate. Like the first step is to step up to the plate and to say, you know what, God, I surrender and I will go. So the first step is going to that plate, getting ready to bat up, to hit that ball when it comes your way. So being able to hit that thing, and you get 3 tries. 3 tries. The first time, if you miss it, it's okay. You know how to look at it when the ball's coming that second time. And even if you strike out all 3 times, once the line clears, you get to go back up and bat again. So what I want to say is don't put so much pressure on going that you feel like you got to show up and be perfect, that it has to be well put together. Everything is not well put together. There's plenty of episodes that I have where I'm stuttering, I'm mumbling over my words. Sometimes I feel like they're all mumbo jumbo together, but when I go back and listen to them, I'm like, oh, that actually makes sense. Sometimes you'll hear me pause. Sometimes you may hear me wheezing because of my asthma, but I don't let that stop me, because those are just excuses that the enemy wants us to use. He wants us to think like, oh, well, if I put that out there, they're going to be saying this and that. And they might say this and that, and that's okay. That is okay, because you're doing what God calls you to do. Don't allow the small things that somebody may not even notice or may not care about to stop you from doing what God has called you to do. So I want to just talk about a movie. First of all, for everyone who don't know me, which is a lot of you. So your girl, listen, this is my number 1 movie. I used to have 2 favorite movies. No, I used to have 3 favorite movies. Now I have 2 for the most part that I can think of. But now the last one, that's no longer a favorite movie of mine. But I have 2 favorite movies. The first one is this movie that I'm talking about, which is where this topic is based off of, outside of just what God has been speaking to me and how he's been showing me just to be bold and to continue to go no matter what life throws at you. But Hardball, it's a movie with Keanu Reeves. Michael B. Jordan is one of the baseball kid players. there's a lot of like known people in there, or I wouldn't say a lot of known people, but there's a lot of names in there that you may know. But it's a movie. When did Hardball come out? Let me look and see. I don't even know when Hardball came out, but Hardball has been 2001. Hardball came out in 2001. That is one of my favorite. My sister was 1 year old. I just think about that because I'm like, dang, this movie old. But I love this movie. Like, I love movies like this. Also another one, I wouldn't say it's a favorite of mine, but it's kind of similar to like anything with these kind of backstories, like where it's like you get to see a journey, because I feel like movies tell stories. Like, it's like a book, a good book. Basically, you're watching a good book play out in front of you, like you're watching a good story. So I love anything where it shows you like what a person's been through and they overcome in the end despite what comes up against them. Like any type of movie like that, I love it. I love a romance movie, like anything like that. I like funny movies. Like, I don't want nothing like, there's simple movies where it's like, even this movie, I cried on the part on the end where G Baby dies. Also, another movie of mine is Coach Carter. That's one of my other movies. Like I said, it's kind of similar to this one. Kind of similar to the other movie that I talked about, The Way Back. I think that's what it was called. That was a really good movie. I cried in that movie too, but I wouldn't say it's one of my favorites, but because I just watched that movie. But my all-time favorites is Hardball is number 1. 2 is Coach Carter, and 3 used to be The Proposal. But The Proposal is no longer one of my favorite movies. But top 2, I would say the third one now is Baps. If you know Baps, what? Baps is probably my second. So I will say I have 3. So Coach Carter, Hardball, and Baps. Like, I love Baps. My cousin used to play Baps all the time. And I used to be like, girl, you watch the movie over and over. And now, as I get older, I'm just like, man, I love a good laugh. That movie, if y'all have not seen Baps, go watch it. That movie is so funny. Like, oh my God. But that's just me just having a little chit chat with you guys. But yeah, Hardball is one of my favorite movies. It's my number 1 favorite movie. I love this movie. Like, when I tell you I watch it every day, not every day, but every day I watch it is what I meant to say. Every day I watch it and I laugh like it's my first time seeing it. Like, this movie is so funny, like outside of like the other things, obviously, but it is such a funny movie. Like, it just makes you laugh. It makes you cry. It gives you like just that 3 in 1, you know? So, basically just giving you guys a backstory for anyone who has not seen the movie. It's based off the main character, Connor O'Neill, who is played by Keanu Reeves. He's a guy who's really heavy into gambling. He's like bad on some bets. He's like in debt. Like, I want to say like $12,000, is how much he was in debt that I can think of. He ended up betting under his dad's name. His dad passed away, but he was making bets on his account, and I guess I'm assuming that the dad had the same kind of problem. That's where he got it from. So he comes to a point where he's at like his wit's end. Like, he owes like everybody around town. Everybody's looking to break his head off, basically. And so he ends up running to, I'm not familiar with how he knows this person. I guess it's through the gambling system or whatever. So he goes to this person and asks, like, you know, hey, can I have 12 grand? Like, I'm up 12 grand, and, you know, if I don't have it, you know, they're going to get rid of me. And so he gives them a proposition, you know, and in this moment, I was kind of reminded of how God is. Like, sometimes we present prayers to God and we ask God for certain things, and he gives us those prayers. I ain't gonna say gives, he answers those prayers, but sometimes it's not in the way that we ask. Like, for instance, if we say, well, Lord, you know, I need some money in my account to do da-da-da, and God will send you what you need to do what you need, but it may not be in the form of money. He may tell you, he may give you the answer to get that money, or somebody may send you like something outside of the form of money. Like, but God still answers the prayer, right? So basically, like, in this moment, I was just like, just like God, sometimes we pray for things and God answers us, you know, but it may not be in the form or the way that we thought he was going to answer. And so obviously, just like we would, he's presented with this compromise, and he has to make a decision and say, okay, well, am I going to potentially die over this 12 bands, or am I going to do something so simple as coach a team for 10 weeks? And get my $500 checks until I pay my debt off or whatever. And so he ends up agreeing to do the coaching or whatever. And so, you know, it was a struggle. He doesn't know anything about coaching, you know? He doesn't know anything. I want to say maybe he knows a little bit about baseball, because even when he was coaching them, when he played, like when he went to just help them or whatever, he was hitting the bats or the balls with the bat. So I'm like, maybe he knows a little bit about baseball, but I'm pretty sure he was never a coach or anything like that. So I'm going to go for it and just say that he has no background in actually coaching kids in baseball. So maybe he stepped up to the plate and used what he already knew. And initially, let's be real, he didn't have intentions on coaching these kids. He's just like, okay, I'm here to get what I need to get. And then he ends up winning this bet for $12,000. And so he decides like, oh, I'm out. Like, I got what I need. I'm out, right? And so for a little while, he steps back from coaching the kids after like he's left like this great impact on the kids. The kids have left this great impact on him. And then he has this friend that's attached to him who's in betting too. Like, the friend is like bad in betting too. And so the friend, once he wins the 12 bands, the friend is like, oh, listen, let's go put in another bet. Like, we don't have to do all of it. Like, they were going to put the 12 bands back into the bets or whatever. So they were going to be gambling away. And so he battled between like, okay, do I want to get myself back into something that I literally just by the grace of God got out of? Because he ended up changing his original bet for, I think he betted against like a Chicago Bulls basketball game. And so like in the nick of the hour, he ended up winning. They ended up winning the game. He ended up winning the bet and being able to pay off his debts. And so they paid his debts off or whatever. And he, got to keep the 12, the 12,000 that he was getting from working with the kids. So it's like a win-win. You got all your debt clear, and then you still got to keep 12 bands. So double for your trouble. Amen. So furthermore, he ends up leaving the kids and telling them like, oh, I was just in it for such time. Would you think I was going to be your coach forever? Da, da, da. So he ends up, like just kind of stepping away or whatever. And then he comes back to bring the equipment, and he's like toiling between like, okay, I can't leave these kids. Like, God has given me a way, or obviously he didn't say God, but he's like, I was presented with a way out. I just cleared all my debt. I can't get back into this game. So he tells the friend like, listen, I can't do this no more. Like, I'm out of the game. And so the friend's like, oh, just put up 3 bands. We don't have to do the whole thing. Like, the friend's still trying to talk him. I'm like, and isn't that just like the enemy? Like, the enemy will just say, just dabble a little bit. Just do this small thing. Like, God's gracious. Like, he'll forgive you. And that's true. He will forgive you. God is gracious and he is merciful. But don't be tempted, because once you get your hand in that, whatever it is, a little bit, and you lose control of it, you don't know if you're going to ever come back out of it, And I would imagine that with just the history of this person or this character in this movie, because he's so bad and just deep in gambling, that had he would have gambled all that 12,000 away, he would have lost it and got himself back into what God had, got him out of. By the grace of God, he literally was out. And he had to make a decision. He had to make a choice to show up for himself, to be able to show up correctly for these kids. And one of the biggest things, because I know this is like long-winded, but one of the most important things I found, because when I ended up watching the movie in depth to just write my notes and get everything out, for me, this one was kind of different, because the message that, like I said in the beginning, is basically just a call to step to the plate and take your swing at the balls. Do what it is that God is calling you to do, and don't run away from it. Don't shy away from it. It doesn't have to be perfect. See, look, I'm talking crazy. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be all put together. Just show up. Just show up. And so I was sitting there the other day, and I was like, okay, well, Lord, maybe this isn't the movie that you want me to use. And I had already said, like, lately I've been sharing, different messages and stuff like that. But in the season 7, the last episode that I put up, told you guys going into season 8, we're going to be talking about how to play the game of love, which is basically just how to be willing to do what it is that God tells us to do, how to love people, how to love others, how to show up for ourselves, because God is love. It's not really just about loving, being with a spouse and stuff like that, but just love in general, because God is love. So teaching you the foundation to live life by love, because if you live life by love, you're living life God's way and not your way. So The first one that I did was the one about the way back. That was a really good movie. Really good message in that. And then I was like, okay, cool. I wrote down like every other sport that I thought about. And honestly, baseball was not even on my list. But the movie, the name kept popping up. And I was like, oh, Hardball. I can do Hardball. And I was I was going to do a part 2 for the first one to do Coach Carter. But I was like, well, no, that's the same sport, baseball. I'm like, and it's kind of the same story. So I was like, nah. So, like I said, Hardball kept coming up. But when I was watching the movie, I didn't really like with the last movie and the last episode. Listen, I had like 2 or 3 pages of just like notes and everything. So I was just like, oh, this is good. Yeah, I had like 2.5 pages. I'm just going through my pages right now. But I had 2.5 pages. This one, I didn't have too much. Like, I wrote down the main character. I wrote down, like I said, the backstory, which is what I gave you in the beginning. Up until this point, I wrote down just honestly a bunch of nothings. And then it hit me once it got towards the end of the movie. There's a scene where the youngest boy in the group, I think he wasn't old enough. It was one dude that got kicked out because he was too old and he just wanted to play. And he ended up getting kicked out of baseball because they found out that he changed his birth certificate, and he ended up being added into a game. And so at the end, there's a game that they played before they go to like the championship to win the trophy. And so one of the good players and the little boy who was the youngest one, he was like a little team mascot because he couldn't play or whatever, but he was still on the team because he was like, he wanted to be close to his brother. He just wanted to be there. So the coach was like, he warmed his heart. So he's like, yeah, you can be on the team or whatever. You like our little team mascot. And so he ends up getting shot in a drive-by because they obviously live in the projects. So him and the brother are coming home from the game. Broad daylight, he gets shot and, passes away. And so there's a part where he's at the funeral and he starts giving this speech. He starts giving this speech about how the boy, I think his name was Jarius. They call him G-Baby, but his name was Jarius. And like just talking about how this little person had made like such a huge impact. And mind you, it had only been a few weeks, but these kids had really turned this man's life around. They were the part of him that decided to say, you know what, I can no longer do this because there's people on the other side of my obedience. There's people on the other side of my obedience waiting for me to show up to coach them on a baseball team so that I can leave an impact. And what I thought was so profound about the storyline of the story was, which is just hit me now, is there's the brother of the person of the little boy that died, G-Baby, his brother Kofi, he was a good player. But there's a part in the beginning where he can't play on the team because he doesn't want to, he was failing in school. And he was focusing on baseball solely and not focusing on both. And so his mom and his teacher had agreed that, if you can't do your schoolwork, obviously you can't play baseball because baseball is not more important than getting your education. So there's a book, I think it's A Twinkle in Time or Wrinkle in Time or something like that, a nonfiction book. No, was it a nonfiction? No, it was a fiction book. It was made up. So there's a book that he has to read to write an essay. And so the teacher asked him, like, did you read the book? And so he's like, yeah, I didn't like it. And so she's like, well, I'm assuming that, you're not telling me anything about the book. So tell me, what did you not like? And he's like, well, it's just, booty, like it sucks or whatever. And so she's like, oh, well, I'm going to have to call your mom and let her know that you didn't read it. So she goes to walk off or whatever. And he starts talking about how I guess I'm assuming the main character of the book is a daughter and her mother. So the daughter and the mother are, I'm assuming, waiting for the father to come back home. I don't know where he's at. But he says that, they're crazy to believe that that man's going to come back home because where I'm from, speaking of the projects, where I'm from, fathers don't come back home. Like, where I'm from, that's the unheard of. They go out and they never come back, or you never even see them. So, where I'm from, that's unreal. So, for her to be sitting here, for the mom and the daughter to be waiting on this father to come back home, that's crazy because where I'm from, that don't exist. And so everybody's like stunned because they're like, oh, but it's so crazy because like I said, in the ending of the movie, he loses his brother, and the coach like steps up and is like, he's kind of like this male figure in all of these kids' life. I want to say it was like 10 of them. Like, he's this male figure in their life. And so I just imagine, like, had he would have decided, like, okay, I got my 12 bands, I'm clearing that, I'm going to go back into this gambling, then that would have been the end of him coaching. That would have been the end of him showing up for these boys. Like, you just never know. Excuse me, because I'm kind of, like, stuffy. I got my ceiling fan over there. I'm not going to turn it off. But you just never know. Never know how the way you show up helps somebody. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just imagine, like, dang, this man already had a bad taste in his mouth about men in general. So losing your brother, not having that father there to console you through it, or him and his mom to console them through that. But you can count on the community. You can count on this coach, and I think about too, just like with growing up, how there's a lot of people who don't have parents in their lives, or, they don't have that male figure or that mom figure. So there's a lot of stories where people talk about how, there was the teacher, there was this coworker, there was this friend, there was somebody's friend's mom. Like, there's other people that will come into your life and they will step up, and they won't obviously be your mother or your father or your aunt or your sister, but they will feel like that person. Like, it's just like having a best friend that's like your sister, if you have a sister or if you don't have a sister. But you look at that person, it's like, dang, this really my sister, or dang, this really my brother, or dang, this really this is a person I don't really have blood ties with, but they're a part of me. You know what I'm saying? And I say all the time, you can't help the family that you're born into, because obviously God chose your family. And in life, he chooses your friends, but they're also your family. And you get to choose how you show up for them and who you allow to show up for you in certain ways. So I just imagine that, because there's a scene on the end part where, they ended up going to the championship. They wanted to cancel it because of the mascot's like death or whatever, but they ended up playing. And so they were going to cancel because the brother didn't show up, which is understandable. You just lost your brother. Your brother died in your arms, But he shows up and he's like, we're going to play this game today, and we're going to play it for my brother. And so, the coach just looks at him and he pulls him in and gives him a hug. And I'm just like, man, like, I can only imagine, like, you ever had a moment where you watch a movie and it just gets you? Like, you just feel like you can feel it. Obviously, this is a movie. It's not real life. But I think this movie was actually based on a true story. Now that I'm thinking about it, let me look. Let's see. Okay, I can't find it, but I think this is based on a true story. If I'm wrong, correct me, but I think this movie is based on a true story. So it just goes to show, like, imagine had that coach would have walked away at that moment, right in the middle of a breakthrough, right in the middle of changing that young boy's mind about men. Because internally, I'm pretty sure not only did he feel this way about his father because his father wasn't there, but he felt that way about men in general. So when you have this one man that shows up, white guy, in the projects, coaching 10 black kids baseball, that means a lot, because you used to not having no men, period. You're used to not having, the men that you do have are sitting outside doing drive-bys and, selling drugs and stuff like that. So it's just like, to have somebody actually show up in your life, and color doesn't matter, black, blue, purple, whatever. God doesn't see color. We as people, you see people. I'm pretty sure he didn't associate his father with just a black man. I'm pretty sure he had that mindset across the board for men in general. So when you have this one man who's not perfect, who's very flawed, who's got his own things going on, but he decided to say, you know what? I'm going to put this aside to show up for these 10 boys because I'm all they got. I'm all they have when it comes to a man. So I got to show up. And not only do I have to show up, but they're showing up for me. And it's so profound because you hear that in the end of the movie. And like I said, this is different because I'm used to watching something or dissecting something and then writing down the notes throughout the movie. So the whole movie, I'm just writing like stuff here and there. When I look at my paper, I'm like, I really didn't have too much of nothing. Really. Until the ending. The very last 15 minutes, if that much long. I don't even think it was 15 minutes of the movie left when I started getting the message. But sometimes it's at the end where everything starts to make sense. So, overall, basically, what this movie teaches is how to play as a team. Like, the coach taught the boys how to play as a team. He taught them how to talk to each other. He taught them how to play on the field together, how to encourage one another. And what I got from it was that each position is different, but all important and equal to the next person. And we can apply that to our real lives. Each and every one of us is called, whatever that looks like. And I've said this plenty of times before. Each and every one of us is called. Each position may be different, but the job is the same. In baseball, the goal is the same, to win. As a daughter and a son of God, the goal is to win, to save lives, to continue to walk in God's honor and God's favor, to save souls, to preach the gospel. And sometimes it's a lot of people think like, oh, I'm not going, walking outside, holding no Bible, knocking on doors. Sometimes it's just you showing up and being you. Because in you being yourself, because you have a heart for God, your light will shine through it. And you won't even know the impact or the imprint that you've left on somebody. But I guarantee you, if for whatever reason, let's just say, for instance, say you had a person, say you had a best friend, right? And this best friend was just the opposite of you. But because of who you were and you got attached to this person, you started changing this best friend for the better. But let's just say, for instance, you guys lost touch or you guys haven't talked in years. And then when you come back into that person's presence, they can feel the shift. They can feel what's different because you had an impact on them. And the whole time it wasn't really per se you, it's God. It's the way that God flows through you, the way that God flows through your life. It shines on that other person. And so they can feel it when they're not around you. They can feel when the right people are attached to you. It feels different. When you can go out and just be yourself, people can sense authenticity. They can sense who you really are by just how you show up. People can sense when you're being fake, when you putting on, but a person with a genuine heart, that's going to shine over anything. So it's important to know that what you have to say is important. What you've gone through is important. Somebody needs to hear it. Have you ever sat in a conversation and somebody said something and you know all too well the very story that they're telling, but because of maybe shame or maybe not feeling qualified enough or not wanting to be judged or whatever the case is, you didn't say anything? But what if in that moment you decided to show up and say something out of something you learned in that same situation to another person, and it saves that person's life? I'm pretty sure there's times where you've had conversations with somebody and somebody came back and said, remember that time we had this conversation? You may not know it, but I never will forget that. And you just be like, what? That little old conversation, I ain't say too much. And the whole time you said a lot. The whole time you were just being yourself, and that person just gravitated to you. That person just loved it because people will be curious about who God is because of how you talk about God, how you let people know how he's brought you through, what he means to you. You're on fire for God. So that makes people attached to you that come in your presence. They want to know who God, they start getting curious. They want to know who God is too. It makes me think about, the story of the bridesmaids, about the wise ones and the unwise. the ones who didn't have enough oil. And when it came time to go in, it was too late. They had to go out and get oil. When they came back, the door was shut, and they cried out to be let in. And he said, "No, depart from me. I promise you, I don't know you." That's Matthew. Let me look it up. Matthew, one moment. Matthew 25. Yep, that whole thing. And even the part in Matthew 25:31 where it says, or 34, where it talks about, I'll just read it. "Then the king will say to those on his right, 'Come, you who are blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me. I was naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, and you came to me.' Then the righteous will answer him, saying, 'Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you drink? And when did we see you a stranger and welcome you, or naked and clothe you? And when did we see you sick or in prison and visit you?' And the king will answer them, 'Truly I say to you, as you did it to one of the least of these, my brothers, you did it to me.'" And the same goes for the people that's on his left, the people who didn't make the right decisions. "Then he will say to those on his left, 'Depart from me, you cursed, into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was hungry, and you gave me no food. I was thirsty, and you gave me no drink. I was a stranger, and you did not welcome me. Naked, and you did not clothe me. Sick and in prison, and you did not visit me.' Then they also would answer, saying, 'Lord, when did we see you hungry or thirsty or a stranger or naked or sick or in prison and did not minister to you?' Then he will answer them, saying, 'Truly I say to you, as you did not do it to one of the least of these, you did not do it to me.' And these will go away into eternal punishment, but the righteous into eternal life." That's Matthew 34 through 46. And the story about the bridesmaids is right before that, when he talks about the 10 virgins. But yeah, sometimes you have to extend what you cannot. Like I said, and I say this all the time, if God has told you to depart from people because they're in darkness, then you listen to God. Because darkness and light cannot mix together. Oil and water cannot mix together. And it's not your responsibility to show up and be God for somebody else. You can pray for them from a distance and, keep yourself covered. Because when you're in connection with people in darkness will try to dim your light at any means necessary. So definitely pray and ask God for, if it's people that he's told you to pull from and you're not sure, or if you're confused about what that is, or, if you have somebody on your mind that's coming to mind, pray and ask God, well, how do I show up for this person? And he will instruct you. It may just be sending that person a letter from afar, or sending that person a text message, but not really engaging. Like, you can engage with somebody and not be like in relationship with them. And that's across the board. You can pray for somebody and they not know it, Or you can let somebody know, hey, just reaching out to you, just want to let you know I'm praying for you. Something small like that. But, so yeah, I thought that this move was profound because it's in the end where you get what the beginning is really about. Like, you get to see a person who's broken, a person who's flawed, a person who is human, who walks through a journey. And even in the midst of him showing up to be this coach for these kids, he's faced with so many things. He got people chasing after him to kill him. He ain't got no money. He ain't got this. And then he's trying to do the best he can with the little bit he got. And he's got death threats all over the world. And then the friend end up bringing some of the people to his house to knock his head off. Like, you got all these things that's just like real life. As you're still continuously walking with God, Things are still coming up against you. They don't stop just because you start following God. And even in that, even when you distance yourself from the people that God has called you to, the enemy will still come looking, because he ain't gonna rob an empty house. Your fuel, your oil for God is overflowing. You're on fire for God. Why would you think that the enemy wouldn't attack you? He don't want you to be on fire for God. He wants you to be out here living aimlessly with nowhere, just living life, coasting. So the minute you decide to get serious is the minute he says, oh, okay, I know what can get her. I know what can lure him. And you start getting all these distractions from all over the world. People you ain't talked to in years. Exes you ain't even thought about. Family members you ain't seen them in years. People reminisce. And the stuff they reminisce about ain't even worth reminiscing about. And you really have to just sit there and be like, what in the world? What is this? But I just thought it was profound, because even in baseball, like I said, you the first thing you do is step up to that home plate. And then you hit that ball when it comes, and you move on to the next one as much as you can. Because if somebody catches the ball, obviously you're out. But if somebody doesn't catch that ball and you keep running, you can guarantee to hit another base or make a home run. So the goal is to make it back home. You got to start at the home plate. Go to each plate. Run your race and make it back home. You may have a stop in between, because, okay, if they don't catch the ball immediately when you hit it, okay, say once you get to first base, they catch it. Okay, so now you stay in that first place. But while you standing there, maybe there's some stuff coming up against you. You got this thing going on over here. You got this and that. And then in the midst of that, somebody else come up to hit the ball. They miss it. So you still stuck on home base or first base. So then they hit it maybe on the third strike. They finally hit it. And then you can run to the next two bases. But you still got one more to go until you can run back home. There's stuff coming up against you there. You got to slide on the base. Maybe you fall and, slide too far on the base. So now you got to run back. Like, that's real life. But you got to keep going to make it back home. And you got to go home and take people with you. Not physically to your home, but I'm saying back to the beginning, God. And in doing what God has told you to do and called you to do, that's going to do that. It's not perfect. You may not have all the answers, but you search it out until you do. This man showed up not knowing nothing about baseball. He didn't have no intentions on being no coach for real. But that's just how God works. All things work together for the good of those who love Christ. Romans 8:28. Life in the Spirit is what that chapter is called. So you have to go. And it makes me think about Romans 8:18, future glory. For I consider that the sufferings of this present time are not worth comparing with the glory that is to be revealed to us. Because when you walk with God, God will guide your every step. And for instance, God will give you everything you need to show up correctly. Just for instance, using this movie, this man was a coach. Okay, one of the kids got hurt from practice being let out too soon because he was too busy dabbling in his gambling life. He put the kid's life in danger. So in that moment, okay, you make one mistake, grace, patience and grace. They said, okay, cool, you still gonna be the coach, but now we're gonna equip you with this soccer mom van or hatchback to get these kids home to make sure they get home safely. God will show up and provide everything you need to be successful in where he's calling you to. God will not send you empty-handed. And if you go empty-handed, when you get there, he'll have instruction for you. He will have everything you need waiting for you on the other side of obedience. Not sitting at home still thinking about it. Not still praying about it. Some of us are still at home praying about it because we want the whole blueprint. And something I thought about the other day was, for instance, me. When I got the understanding that God was telling me to leave my job, I literally got that revelation in like a week or two. I had a week or two to cry about it, to mourn about it, and to make a decision and say, okay, am I going to obey? Am I going to go left? Or am I going to go right? And when that day came, I said, you know what? I'm going to choose right. But even in the midst of that, like I said, you step up to that home plate and you stand there and you swing the bat as best as you can. You may make a shot, you may not. And even in that, I had to show up that day, give my resignation, but I still had 30 days, well, technically 32 days, because I ended up working 32 days, but I had 30 days, roughly, let's say that, because I initially put in for 30 days. So I had 30 days to sit and still work, still show up, still laugh, still talk, still do everything that I knew was coming to an end. You can imagine how that felt. And I know that God did it like that for a reason, because he said, I want to know, even when you're still sitting in it and you're comfortable and you're really thinking about disobeying me, I want to know when the last day comes, what are you going to do? Because you know what I told you to do. And let's be real, God is our judge first. He's just, he's gracious. But if you're wrong, you're wrong. And he's going to let you know. And like I said, and I know that all too well, because there's been plenty of times where I was dead wrong. I knew what not to do, and I did it anyway. Just out of fear, out of disobedience, sometimes out of, I don't want to do that. And I know what it cost me, and I know where it ended me up, flat on my behind. So I said, this time, even though I'm scared, even though I don't know what I'm doing, I don't know if nobody wants to hear what I got to say, I don't even know what I'm going to say. I don't know how to do any of this. I had just thought about doing like my YouTube channel and stuff. I've been doing my podcast for years. I never thought about, and like I said, there's time and place for everything. Because I had been talking about doing YouTube, but then I was like, well, that ain't really relevant for what I do, so I never did it. And then this year came, or the end of the last year, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna start a YouTube channel. I don't know when, and lo and behold, God said, now's the time to put it out there. I want you to tell people about what I've done for you. I want you to tell people who you used to be. I want you to tell people how it is to be a follower of me, to be a daughter of a king. I want you to tell people boldly. That's scary, you guys, because a lot of times you just don't know if people want to hear what you got to say. But you got to trust God. So I'll leave you guys with this, the ending of what he said, and then I'll leave you to it. But so at the end, as he's standing at the pulpit giving his speech about G Baby, the one who dies in the end, he says, so basically just giving you guys a backstory. So this is the game before they go into the championship. One of the boys, he couldn't swing because he was having an asthma attack. So he ended up switching the little boy in. Mind you, he wasn't supposed to play because he wasn't old enough. But when he stepped up to the plate and they told him like, oh, he's going to bat in for somebody else. And then the other coach was like, well, no, he can't do that. And then when he looked and saw who he was because of his size, he disqualified him. He said, oh, well, this, in his mind, he said, well, this will be easy breezy because look how little he is. He don't know nothing about hitting a ball. And he disqualified him based off what it looks like. And that's what it looks like to be a follower of Christ. People going to disqualify you because of your past. People going to disqualify you because of your whatever people still got holding on to you, that idea of who you used to be. They're going to use that. I can't take no podcast from her because remember she used to do this. I can't believe her. Remember she used to do that. She ain't no real follower of Christ because remember she used to, and that's okay. Regardless of that, people gonna talk. You still show up and do what God told you to do. You still show up. So that was important. But so he walks up to him and he tells him, the coach tells him, you can swing if you want, but you don't have to. If you go down looking, none of us care. If you want to swing, swing. Get back in there and do what you feel. And so he tells him, he's like, I was fearless. He says he was fearless as he stepped up to the plate. But I was terrified for him with 2 strikes. So this means this is our last hit. So it's either he make it or he don't, And in reality, I'm pretty sure the team didn't care because it's like, okay, going up there. But at the same time, they wanted to make the championship. So it's like they did care but didn't care because they're like, okay, you just stepping in to help the team out. Whatever happens, happens. But I feel like if they would have lost, they probably would have been bummed because they were so close to getting to the finish line. So, he tells them that, we were 2 strikes out. We had 1 more strike and our hope was swindling. And so, he's like, he's standing there batting up and he said he hit a shot down to first base and we won the game. Somebody that stepped up and seemed unqualified got a home run and won the game. You're that one. You're going to step up and do what God calls you to do. And you're going to continue to make home runs. You're going to continue to hit those bases. You're going to continue to overwhelm people with who you are because God called you. And obviously, you know what that looks like. That's different for everybody. It could just be literally having a conversation with a friend. It could be literally just praying for somebody. It could literally just be telling your story. Getting more open, being more, it could be anything. Like I told you guys before, stop complicating it. That's going to be you. You're going to step up and hit a home run. You're going to surprise yourself outside of other people. You're going to be surprised. And God's going to be looking down in heaven, admiring you. Smiling on his child because look at you. And so he goes on to tell him that, we won the game. And so there was a part where in the movie, the team runs up, they pick him up and he's holding his hands up like, woo, I did it. I got us there. We're going to the ship. And so he says, I was watching him raise his arms in triumph as he ran through the first base. I was lifted in that moment to a better place. He lifted the world in that moment. I was made a better man and I am forever grateful. And I forgot a part. He said that he was made a better man, even if it was just that moment. But I am forever grateful. It goes back to that simple thing where that one time you showed up for somebody just being yourself and that left an imprint on them. They will never forget that. That one thing will carry them to who they're supposed to be. It will carry them to their destiny because you decided to have a conversation with them. You decided to be you. You never know what people are going through. And did this man know that he was gonna have this impact on these kids and then one was gonna be taken away and now he's gonna live his life for the rest of his life remembered by a good mark out of something bad. This man was taken by a bullet, innocent. This had nothing to do with him. But that's going to forever be on all of them kids' minds and hearts to know that, you know what, I still get a chance to live and I'm going to live this thing out and I'm going to walk it out regardless of what comes up against me. I'm going to stand tall. And so that's what this message is about. To show up. So lastly, they get to the game and they end up playing, but they're about to cancel it because only 8 of them are there. Because it was 10 of them on the team. The one boy got killed and the brother didn't come because obviously he's still mourning. So he's giving this speech to the team. And so he says, I want you guys to take a good look at yourselves today and feel proud. You made it here. They got to the championship. You made it regardless of what happened. You made it here. And so he says, you're here. What I've learned from you is that really one of the most important things in life is to show up. I'm blown away by your ability to show up through everything that has gone on. And he tells them that the league never wanted them to play. And so he says they never wanted you to play this game, but you showed up. Because there was so many things like I said, they end up kicking one boy out because he was like a 2 weeks older. Which I was like was crazy because all he wanted to do was play baseball so that he wouldn't have to join a game. So he ended up getting kicked out of the baseball, doing something right. And he literally got pushed into darkness because he knew that, okay, well, what else I'm going to do? So he ended up joining the game. Like I said, he was a part of the game that did the drive-by that killed the little boy. And I'm pretty sure that's going to weigh on him. Decisions matter. The choices you make matter. And so then they got the young one who dies. They told him he couldn't play because he wasn't old enough. All he wanted to do was just be there with his brother and have something to look forward to. There's the other boy, Andre. When he walking him home, he asked him, he said, "What do you guys do around here for fun?" And he says, "We show up to baseball and play baseball with you." You never know what it is. Something as simple as showing up to a coaching gig just to pay back some debt had the biggest impact on this man's life. Not only his life, but the kid's life. You're one person impacting 10 kids. That's going to live with them because now they're going to go out in that world and be the same man you were to them, to other kids. Because they know what it's like not having a father or a man to show up. The same way you're going to go and do and be who you're called to be, and somebody's going to be lit up by who you are, and they're going to go out and be that same person. That's what this life is all about. And so he tells them that, I'm proud of you guys. The way you showed up, it's about showing up. I don't care if we won or not, because in the beginning they were losing, but they ended up winning. Once they figured out how to figure it out as a team, they started winning games, and they were like good. I told you they got to the championship, and they ended up winning the championship with the trophies at the end. In the end, we will get the victory. Come on. In the end, you will see the victory, and God will be proud of you. He's proud of you just for stepping up to the plate. And you may feel like, oh, I got to run away, because being real, that was me. I'm like, God, I can't do this. But anytime that you decide to take a step away, just remember that in leaving, even if it's just for a second, somebody's not getting what you put out, what they need. Somebody wasn't able to stumble across the message that they were supposed to hear if you were supposed to put it out that day. Or if you were supposed to show up somewhere and you didn't go, the person that you were supposed to impact didn't get impacted because you weren't there. Don't be the reason that somebody don't know God. Be the reason that somebody gets to know him, wants to know him because of who you are. And so the brother walks up at the last hour, and they're like, they're going to play. And so he's like, he was my brother. He loved to see us play. He's watching us right now. And so he looks at the team and he said, "We going to play today." So basically, like, we're going to give it all we got. It's really hardball. Like, we coming out here, we going to play like we never played before. And they end up getting the victory, and they all got trophies for winning the championship. Something that they had never done before, but wanted to do. They accomplished it with the person that was least likely. And that's another thing. You're the least likely candidate, but you're the one that's going to take it to the finish line. You're the one that's going to get a home run, because the person before you couldn't do it. You're going to take them all the way. You're going to lead them back home. And you're going to go out and step up to the plate again. And that's just being you. So that was the message. I just wanted to encourage you, because this is what, God told me. And I wanted to tell you, because time is short, you guys. Time is precious. The kingdom of God is at hand. You don't know the day nor the hour. Don't keep thinking you got time. You don't know how much time you have. Get right. Repent. Turn around. If you've been obedient, whatever it is, repent regardless. And go do what God told you to do. Join that ministry at your church. Join that youth club. Go to the networking events. Call your friend. Call your family members. Pray for your family members in prison. Send those letters. Send that text message. Release and let go of whatever he's telling you to let go of. Leave that position for another position, whatever he's offered you. Whatever has come to you that you weren't even looking for. Because sometimes God will send it to your door and you ain't even knocking for it. You like, well, I ain't applying to that. Take it anyway. After you consult with the Lord, okay? Don't just be out here doing stuff on a whim in a prayer talking about Jasmine told me. No, Search the kingdom first. Ask God first. But you know what God's calling you to do. And like I said, it's probably something so simple. And like he said, when he was throwing his hands up in triumph, throw your hands up and surrender. Give it to God. Let him lead you. Let him be God. And you be a follower of him. So I just wanted to encourage you today to be bold, to go, continue to be pure and held by faith. Let faith be what continues to drive you, not what people say, not how people clap for you, not nothing else. Let the kingdom of heaven be your God. Let God being pleased be your reason. Let you get into that gate and him saying, good job. Not saying depart from me. You don't want to hear depart from me. I don't want you to hear depart from me. And that's the hardest thing, to know that I'm responsible for other people's lives by being called. Because God is our judge. We will all have to account for what we did. And I can't give an excuse, neither can you, because there ain't going to be no time. The time for excuses and delays is now. Tell God what you're fearing. Tell God why you haven't gone. He's gracious. He's just. He'll hear you. Repent and go. I don't care who's talking about you. Go. Let God be talking about you. Let the kingdom of heaven be talking about you. Let them be rejoicing with you because you've been obedient. It may have took you some time. It's taken me my whole life to just fully surrender and say, God, you got this. Because I've been wanting to be in control for so long. But that comes from having to figure things out early for me. Having to step up and be a woman at a young age, having to step up and make responsible decisions. And God said, now it's time for you to take a seat. I got this. I had it the whole time, but now I really just want you to sit down. I want you to follow me. I want you to follow my lead fully. I don't want you to keep trying to figure it out, because I've already figured it out. Haven't you learned? I got you. I want you to sit down. So that's the message, you guys. Don't forget to share this with somebody that you feel needs to hear it. And don't forget to be obedient. Spend some time in God's presence. Pray, ask, seek, repeat. Hit them home bases. Strike one. Oh, that's what I wanted to share. Oh, thank you, Lord. Last thing. There's a song called Hardball by Sammy Bow Wow. All of them. It's the soundtrack for the song, for the movie. And so it says strike one, caught you by surprise. Because like I said, you're the least likely candidate, and that's why God chose you. When you showed up, the devil's mad. Your enemies are mad because I can't believe it was her. I can't believe it was him. And it is. Caught you by surprise. Hello, it's me. Strike two, right before your eyes. What the things that you're going to do is going to be blink of an eye. You're going to be impacting people. You're going to be inspiring people just by your obedience. Even if it's something simple with just, like I told you before, getting a schedule down pat. Somebody else is going to be impacted by that. Say, you know what, you're right, girl. Or you right, man. I'm going to do that. I've been saying I would need to get a budget. I need to do better. I'm going to do it too. You know, let's partner together to see how we can do it. Something so simple as that. That's why I said don't complicate it. And thirdly, it says this one's to the wall. Ain't no game like a game of hardball. And in the beginning, they say, throw me the ball and watch what I do with it. The pitcher, Miles, was a good pitcher. Like, he was a good pitcher. Like, them balls, them people was not hitting them. You hear me? Give me the ball. I'm going to show you what to do with it. Y'all going to see these 3 strikes, and y'all going to be looking crazy. Because wait, blink of an eye, the ball done gone. You done missed it. Now you got to go. Somebody else got to come up and batter up. Because that's just how good you are. That's why God called you. Because you can do it no other way that somebody else can't do it, because you're you. That person is going to show up the way God called them to show up, and you're going to show up the way you're supposed to. So show up and be obedient, be bold, and go. I love you guys, but most importantly, God loves you more. Don't forget to be grateful, because it makes you gorgeous. I will talk to you guys on the next one. Bye.